Assalamu alaikum everybody. Now that it is Ramadan, I wanted to share this video with you so badly. I've been wanting to make it for about 4 years, which is how long I've been a Muslim. But as a previous Christian who converted to Islam, this was one of the main reasons that I converted. So when I started learning about Islam and I heard that Muslims practice fasting for an entire month, it blew my mind, firstly. But secondly, it reminded me so much of Jesus's temptation in the wilderness when he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, quoting the Bible here. And then he was tempted by Satan during this time for food and drink and water and all this stuff. And when I grew up pretty practicing in the Christian faith, even people around me that practice Lent, which is supposed to mimic Jesus's fast in the Bible, it is not as hardcore or as serious as Muslims practice their fast during Ramadan. And I really just wanted to learn more about it, and I stumbled upon this paper. Now it is done, it's kind of like a thesis paper from a PhD level writing. It's by Marcus Allgood. It's called Ramadan, the Lost Christian Tradition, the correlation between Islamic Ramadan fasting and Jesus's temptation in the wild. Now, this is a bit of work, so I'm going to just highlight some of my main parts here and read them to you guys. But I do recommend reading the whole thing because it compares and contrasts different theories of when, like the timeline of what months and what days Jesus has fasted, based on lots of different hadiths and Christian scholars and just a whole ton of information from historians, and it talks about like astrology, and there's all these different areas and fields of study that come into one thing here and debate, and it is just beautiful and mind-blowing, and I recommend everybody go and read this. Okay, so I'm just going to quote a few little parts here. It said, with that said, the engine, which is, if you don't know, that's what we call the part of the Bible that, was given to Jesus, being revealed in the 12th day of Ramadan is very significant because according to many Jewish and Christian scholars, Jesus began his ministry during the summer months. That's important. We're going to go back to that later. And during this time, he commenced his 40 days and 40 nights of fasting. So in the Quran, it states on 183, O ye who believe, it is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, that you may learn self-restraint. We're talking about fasting here. Let me skip forward to a few more pages. So now it's going to talk about Jesus in the wilderness and the Bible's take about his fasting. And then it's going to compare and contrast and talk about, was Jesus going for taqwa, God consciousness? Was that his goal? So let's see if it is really plausible. The Gospel of St. Luke 3:1 assigns the beginning of St. John's the Baptist mission to the 15th year of the Tiberius Caesar. Augustus, the predecessor of Tiberius, died 19th of August, 14 AD, so that the 15th year of Tiberius's independent reign is 29 AD. But then Tiberius began to associate of Augustus in 11 AD, so that the 15th year reckoned from this date falls in 26 AD. Jesus Christ's public life began a few months later, i.e. about the fall/winter of 26 AD or 29 AD. Both those dates, it goes into more detail later. This means he would have received the injil or the gospel prior to his public ministry that same summer. So if Jesus's public ministry started somewhere close to autumn, then Jesus's temptation and 40-day fast had to start beforehand in the summer during the heat. I mentioned before that the word Ramadan is derived from the word rams, which means to burn or to scorch. The first meaning of Ramadan is excessiveness of heat. The month was so called because when they changed the names of the months of the ancient language, they named them according to the seasons in which they fell, and this month agreed with the days of excessive heat. This lends a clue that Jesus did in fact fast during Ramadan. This is not like it goes into so much more detail. I recommend getting this, okay? Details can be found in Matthew 4, 1 through 11. You can find in the New Testament in the book of Matthew that Jesus went to fast after being baptized by John the Baptist. It says a verse from Matthew here, and then it talks about evidence from the scriptures and archaeological findings has concluded that the site called Al Magnus on the Jordanian side is the most accurate location for the baptism of Jesus and the ministry of John. Right after that, the book of Matthew goes into chapter 4, where it is the story of Jesus being tempted by the devil. The temptation of Jesus Christ is detailed in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. According to these texts, after being baptized by John the Baptist, Jesus fasted for 40 days and nights in the Judean desert. During this time, Satan appeared to Jesus and tried to tempt him. Now, on this page, I'm not going to read all of it, just this little section, but it shows a map. Everyone should be familiar with this map because of nowadays. Well, it's Palestine. And it says, the wilderness, also known as the Judean desert, is a desert, Palestine, that lies in the east of Jerusalem and descends into the Dead Sea. Now, it's going to give more details on this map. It shows everything. And then it goes into those two dates I mentioned earlier and debates them, whether he could be fasting during this time. Now, I know you guys are bored with me trying to read all of this, but by the time I read all of that, I was like so convinced that Jesus actually fasted like the same month, holy calendar, like with the lunar calendar and everything, of Ramadan that we fast today. And my mind was like, oh my gosh, like, we're supposed to do what Jesus did, follow what Jesus did as Christians, right? And these Muslims are doing the same fast that Jesus did, that it says to fast. I was just like speechless. I was like, this is not a sign that, like, it blew my mind. And I'm not going to do a great of his job as explaining as this guy, okay? Like, I am not a super educated scholar, but I read this stuff, and you guys all should too. Please go read this. It will blow your mind, okay? I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Ramadan.